The Apple Valley Model Railroad Club presents Modeling Basics 101. This six-part series introduces you to the exciting world of model railroading, covering everything from initial layout design to final scenery. For more information about the Apple Valley Model Railroad Club, visit their website at avmrc.com. Part 5, Kit Building.
Thanks for coming here today. We got Ken O'Brien today talking about model kit building and scratch building, the do's and don'ts. I think he's going to talk to us more in depth on types of glues and stuff like that. I don't want to take away any of his thunder. So without further ado, Ken, take her away. Thank you.
Thunder or blunder? Well, welcome to this presentation. We're going to do a little bit of everything here, talking about structures. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have built model kits in the past. You know, it helps, but you got to remember now, neatness counts in this side, because you don't want to have thumbprints on your paint job or your glue. So be careful when you're building these things. Okay, we're going to thrash around here about these things. Scratch building, kits, tools, finishes. I mean, there's a myriad of stuff. Trying to do this in an hour or so, it's going to be a fire hose treatment. Okay, kits. If we had hobby shops around, this would be a piece of cake, because you could go to the store, look and see what you got, what fits in your particular genre, but we don't. So you're going to have to do some of this stuff online, unfortunately, or read model kit reviews. Model Railroader and Railroad Model Craftsman are pretty good. We're not into the esoterica like HON3 or SN3 or all those narrow gauges. They've got excellent modelers there. They've got some really interesting kits, and they're the equivalent of anything that you'll see in HO or other scales. But I used to have a subscription to the Narrow Gauge Gazette, because there's a lot of great technique for building in there. But like I'm saying here, are you going to find them in the shops? Probably, maybe not, because most of these guys nowadays seem to stock stuff only if it's been ordered. They don't have extra in the store. That's life these days. You're going to have to get used to looking online at the various and sundry shops that are out there that have got websites. You know, you've got Model Train Stuff. He's up the road now, where his physical location is. That used to be a great physical hobby shop to walk into in Baltimore, but unfortunately it was right downtown on Gay Street, and it was okay. Yeah, so you've got a pretty good idea. I got in there a number of times. I went to English's Model Railroad shop in what the heck was it, Muncie, Pennsylvania, or Williamsport, up in that area. And you know, it's one of those places that you can walk around and you got to actually get down on your hands and knees, because there are kits and stuff from the floor to the ceiling. They were just packed. Unfortunately, they went away last year.
Really?
Yeah. You can still order on.
Bowser?
Yeah, no, not. There's another website that Bowser uses, but it's anyhow. It's Toy Train Heaven.
So Sarasota still has a good shop.
They've got a lot of stuff in there, so just learn how to use those search engines and whatnot. There's another guy over in Landis, Chuck's Trains. Haven't been in there yet, but it's about the closest model railroad shop I think around here, because otherwise you got to go online to get to what's his name, the guy down in Georgia. There's one
South Southeastern Res or Southeastern? Southeastern Housing?
Train Masters,
Okay.
that's another one. He used to be up in Beaufort. Okay, scratch building, some people call it the dark side, some people call it the rivet counters. I like going to some of these RPM meets. You'll hear me talking about them. There's one down in Macon, Georgia in a couple of months. And they've got manufacturers that show up at these things. The big ones to go to is the one in St. Louis. There's when I was there 2 years ago before Ben passed, there was almost 900 of us that were at this thing. The Macon show, we might be getting to 100 this year. Yeah, there's a big difference, but it's still a good place because you're going to meet a lot of great modelers. And they display stuff and they're happy to talk about it. You go to an NMRA meeting and it's hit or miss if the guys are willing to be talking about what they've built. Scratch building takes a little bit more effort. If you've got plans for what you want to build, great. If you don't, you can still do a lot of estimations. But again, it's going to be estimations, and I think it's your level of skills right now for a lot of you guys. I mean, one or two of you have built a number of kits, but the average Joe, if he hasn't been building kits for very long, scratch building is going to be maybe a bridge too far. But I won't dissuade you. I'll try to help you out. Trying to do the estimates that you've got to do is going to be the hard part, because you've got how tall is the door, how wide's the window, you know, all of those kinds of things. You could use those as scaling factors when you look at a picture. You know, it's easy when you look at a boxcar or something, but when you're looking at structures, you're trying to figure out how wide is that thing. You know that a door is maybe 3 feet wide. Usually entrance doors are about like that. But windows are so high and so wide, so you've got to go in there and estimate. Now you can find a lot of the stuff, the parts to do those by getting online, looking at Tichy, looking at Grantline. They all make windows and doors that might work in your model. But again, you should be working, if you're going to do something like that, work off pictures. I mean, that's true for anything, whether you're building a box car, a refrigerator car, a station, work off of pictures, because it'll orient you a lot better than, that looks about right, and you don't have the proportions down yet. After you've been doing it a while, like old Ben Bartlett did, Bill Raymond is pretty good at this kind of stuff, but you've got to do a lot to get to the skill levels. And these guys were building models for 50 years, so.
I can tell you one technique I used. I built my grandfather's general store. I was working from pictures.
Yeah.
And I know what the scale is for 2-story and 1-story. But when you're working from a picture, you have to choose, because unless the picture was taken straight on, and they're not.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You got to pick one of those uprights and use that as your data. And measure everything off of that data.
That's exactly right. You've got to be able to do that. Otherwise, your proportions are going to be all out of whack. You got to work at doing stuff like that. That's good. That's an important point for scratch building. Right now, Bill is building up the Sears distribution facility in Chicago. It's huge. Now, he's lucky he's got Stephen Miley up in Mills River that's doing a lot of the pieces parts for him. But it's so big. I mean, his original plan was this thing actually had a curved front. And even, scratch building that stuff, he just couldn't get the proportions right. he ended up straightening the thing out, but it's taken a while. It's not something that you're going to do and, lickety split, like building a kit. How fast do you glue stuff up? Do you paint beforehand? Do you paint afterwards? Those are the kinds of things. I'll get into that with this next portion. We're going to talk about building effectively a wooden kit, but it's laser cut. So it's nowadays, if you're buying a wooden kit for a structure, it's like buying the old plastic, Plasticville or Atlas had kits that you could put together, and it took you probably an hour to do them. And the only thing you'd have to worry about is what color do you paint your bricks, or the roof, or whatever. That's the only issues that you've really got with a kit, is just making sure it matches your prototype. Like my stuff, I can find a few kits of Lackawanna stations, but I got to make sure that they get painted that Midland green, which the old Floquil guys used to call that dark green. I don't know how, I don't think it's dark, but I've got other shades of green that are darker, but that Lackawanna green is a pretty, it's a Midland green. And then the trim on the thing is red. So it's pretty, if you're using a prototype for your colors, if you're building this Southern Depot, look at the colors you got here. Forest green on the bottom, and that mustard yellow on top, and then all your trim is white. There's your colors. You don't have to think about it beyond that. Just finding the right shades of paint that you want, maybe, is about it. Nowadays everybody seems to be going towards the acrylics, and you got to be careful with acrylic paints on plastic. Sometimes they don't adhere very well, so one thing you need to do is to prime your plastic. Also helps to prime your wood if you're going to paint it. And there's a great product called Tamiya Fine Gray Primer. It's a spray can, but you got to be careful because there's a fine spray and then there's just a regular spray. The regular spray is a little bit heavier thickness, or whatever you want to call it. It's like maybe a cream instead of a skim milk. That's about the difference, but I would recommend strongly always use the fine primer, because whatever you're covering, it's going to cover well. And you need to prime just about anything that you're going to paint, I think. There are some people that seem to think you can get away with it, but to be on the safe side, priming is a really good idea. When you're building, you better have some good tools. You want to have quality, sharp knives, your saw. I'll show you a picture of a Northwest Shortline chopper. It's very handy, and the reason I like that is because if you're cutting a lot of wood, you're going to end up wearing a hole in the cutting pad. The Northwest Shortline has got a multi-cut modeling surface. A lot of the other ones that you'll see, they're just a wood product. And once you cut that groove, the only thing you could do then to fix that is to pour some epoxy in there and let it set up. Because if you let the groove keep getting bigger, your cuts are going to get more and more sloppy. And use a saw if you're cutting thick stuff. If you're trying to cut like 1/4-inch pieces of wood, don't cut them on a chopper. Use one of your saws, because you can't cut through a big piece of wood like that. Sanding, your cuts are not going to be perfect. I don't care who you are. I can't. So I have to sand stuff to fit. and having a good number of grits. If you want to do something quick and in a hurry, 80 grits pretty good. If you're getting ready to finish stuff, you're probably going to be up around 220 or maybe even finer. If you're playing with plastics, if you've got clear plastics, you're going to have to polish. So you're going to need finer grits of your sandpapers, and they make them, but you're also going to probably want to get a hold of one of the polishing compounds. Okay, there's your Northwest Shortline chopper, and that's just a little bit of everything. Just walk around in the drugstore to pick up some of these things. They sell them in bags for ladies to do their nails. Doesn't matter, you could use them on wood, plastic. They're handy. Knives, you probably can't have enough, but one thing I would recommend, do not use X-Acto blades.
Really?
They're garbage steel. You can get Excel blades, same shape, and functions, but they're better grade of steel. They'll hold an edge a little longer. Something else you could do too is, if you need to, is have some kind of a honing block to fix, set up your knife blades, because they'll lose their edge pretty quickly, especially as you're trying to shave some wood down or something. So go for better metal blades and have a honing block. Other tools, clamps. Like old Norm Abrams said in This Old House, you can't have enough clamps. I've got stuff that Ben put me onto. They're miniature clothespins. They're about yay big, and they're handy to clamp stuff. I like using this to build stuff in because you can hold the parts, and you want to, when you glue stuff together, if it's a structure or if it's a car kit, you want to have square corners. Because if the corners aren't square, they're not going to glue together right. And you're building boxes, basically. So that's why this is very handy. Weights. I've got a couple of things. They double as square corners, and they're weights. And this one does some other stuff because you can, if you're
Oh, that's nice.
you can do some stuff with your wires on the one side there. It looks like a comb.
Right.
These are machinist blocks. There's one floating around the office in here. This is a small one, but it's a square corner. So you could use it to either keep a wall vertical or two corners square. The one we got in the office is a lot bigger, but it's a great weight to, if you got to just weigh something down. On wood, it's usually not much of a problem. We start gluing some plastics up where you're building layers. You want to keep those under compression while they're drying, because if you don't, and I didn't grab the part this morning, but I've got a car side that's kind of arced, and it'll work eventually, but I've got to do more work to hold it square. That's that right clamp. It's made by an outfit called Kaufman, and you'll see the ads in Model Railroader and RMC, this thing over here. It allows you to glue two sides up, and they're square. I got a bar clamp here, some of the clothespins, that machine block, magnets to hold stuff against these sides. I use a C-clamp, usually the bigger ones. If I had to fix a car for in here that was it was going to be a cleaning car with the weight on the bottom. Well, the problem with the car sides on this refrigerator car was it bulged out, so it was like trying to be round. Didn't work that way. So what I ended up doing was just getting a couple of sprues that were about a little over 1 inch long, glued them inside, and then clamped everything down with a couple of C-clamps. You know, the speed clamps I like they're like a trigger. They work great. Other glue, here we go. This, you could go crazy with glue. I've got a shelf full of this stuff. You know, white glue, it's good. Like I said here, it's slow setting. Carpenter's, the yellow glue, these set up faster. Unfortunately, they do end up, make sure they're on the inside of your models where people can't see it, because you will get a yellow residue on the inside. This is something I don't use much anymore, but I've still got a tube of it. Watch Crystal Cement. If you've got clear stock to glue in, because you can't glue clear stock into anything with CA because it'll smoke the windows. You know, you've seen that, right, Caleb? So CA have a couple of 3 different flavors. They work.
What does CA stand for?
We can't pronounce.
Cyanoacrylate.
Okay.
Excuse, I'm a chemical engineer, so I learned words like that, or did. That one's still stuck in my memory because I made plexiglass once.
By the way, they make colored versions of that now
They do.
for wood filling.
I've got some black
Yeah, so
that I
do I.
could use for some stuff.
Isn't CA, it's just super glue, correct?
Yeah, it's super glue, yeah. Call it what you will, but yeah, I use it for some stuff, and if you get into certain kit building, it's the only thing that's gonna work. I've got one here. Oh, Finero and Camerlengo, you might see this name. Steve Finero and Sharon Camerlengo, I've known them for years. Anyhow, this stuff only glues with super glue. You could probably use rubber cement or goo to get it in place, but once it's set where you want it to be, you got to go back in with super glue. Something else that I've learned is get yourself a loose bag of Legos. Legos are made out of styrene and they've got 90-degree corners. So if you've got a plastic building or a resin car kit that you want to glue square corners on, those Legos are really handy.
And you can use CA.
Yeah, you can use a CA on the resin stuff and then use plastic cements on the plastic. Because, like I said, the Lego blocks are styrene, and most of our model kits are styrene that are plastic. Sometimes you'll see a Plastruct kit and it's got a darkish gray. That's an ABS plastic. It's butadiene something or other. It doesn't glue, it's styrene cements. Because the way styrene cements usually work is it welds the parts together, melts the parts. And
Is there a product that using CA that dries absolutely instant?
yeah, the real thin stuff.
The real thin stuff?
Yeah, with the accelerator.
And then you could shoot accelerator at it too if you get it.
That's what I want, the
Yeah,
accelerator. What is the accelerator?
It's
Spray bottle.
little squirt bottles of, I'm not sure exactly what's in them, but
Where do you
I'd
get
say usually where they sell CA glues, they should have a part of the line is going to have accelerator. Yeah,
Is that the name of it, accelerator? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want to use if you're doing something like that. You can also go to epoxies, but I'll end up gluing myself to the desk or something. Yeah, that's. There are some other glues that have become accepted nowadays This is something called canopy glue. It was designed to glue model airplanes that you fly and they spray fuel on them. This stuff holds in spite of the fuel spray. And it's a white glue.
Does it dry clear?
Yeah, it'll dry clear.
You can use it with styrene?
Yeah. Now, well, yeah, you can, because what I've done is I glued this similar roof walk to a styrene car. I had a brass roof walk to a styrene car, put that on there, and because when it dries, it's still flexible. Whereas when you use super glue, it dries and it's brittle. And if you have something that you built in your house and it's 70 degrees in your house, and then you put it out in your car to take to a show or something, and it's 35 degrees out, you stand a good chance of popping the.
Is that only for plastic? Is that only for plastic?
No, it works just about anywhere.
Okay, cool.
Try it out, use it. Something else that I just found, probably in the last 6 months, this is another different white glue called Superfatic. It's a British product, but I use a couple of different British products. This is a plastic cement that they make. I like it because it's got a brush in it. And if you need a longer brush, they give you that too. Because when you get down to the bottom of this square bottle, it's tough to get to the into the corners. So, and I like it because I can apply it. Some of the plastic cements that we've got, they have very low. What the hell is it? I forget now. But anyhow, they flash off so fast that you've got to take it out of the bottle and just put it on right next to where you're gluing something together. They're not easy to work with. They're too volatile. So this stuff doesn't flash off as nearly as fast for plastic cements. But this is really good for, and it works about like using this stuff. But it holds well. I've glued ceramics together with it. I've used it on wood. I don't think I tried it on plastic yet, but then I've got this stuff. More pictures. Slightly older version of canopy cement.
Hypo cement? What is
Yeah, that's the watch crystal. Like I said, I haven't used that stuff in a long time.
In other words, it's still better for ballast than Titebond, right?
Oh yeah, for that kind of stuff, because this thing's going to dry with a yellow cast.
Yeah, well,
If you're doing your ballast work, use the Elmer's. It's because it's going to dry clear, and it's easy. They're both pretty easy to take apart. But if you've done something on like say a wooden kit with this yellow cement, the only way you're going to get that apart is with some IPA. You can keep washing the IPA on the glue joint, and eventually it'll release. But it's not quick, because normally if you try to do that, when you glue stuff, you try to take the wood apart, the wood will break before the joint does. So, but that's true with if you're building a house, a real house. All right, this is going to really get nuts, because if you're playing with wood products, you got to seal the stuff. Otherwise, you're going to see the wood grain in the wood sheets that you might be using. I mean, I built a Penske boxcar a long time ago, and I could never get rid of the wood grain on the steel sides of the car. So even after painting it, and I don't know, 3 coats of sanding sealer before that, I'm just not a fan of wood for steel car kits. It's just the way it is. They do sell some stuff that I've, from, you know, Michaels and Hobby Lobby and whatnot, but these things are thick. You got to really work at them. Use your steel wool, very fine steel wool, to clean stuff up, and make sure you clean anything that you've used a steel wool on with a tack cloth, because otherwise you could end up leaving stuff behind, and then eventually it rusts, and you'll end up with rust stains on something you probably don't want rust stains on. So just be heads up when you're playing with wood to do that. And some of this stuff stinks. If it smells bad, you should be wearing a mask. Otherwise, you're going to rot your brains away, and you're too young to be doing that. Good old scale coat. Stuff works great if you could find it. And then the stuff that really smells bad, that's that Pactra. It's quite the odorific. All right, this is a foot stomper. If you're going to stain your wood, do it before you do anything else. Because once you get glue on the wood, all you can do is paint it. You can't stain it anymore. It's done. They sell stuff, you know, the stuff in Hobby Lobby and whatnot, those craft paints, they're not bad if you could find the colors that match what you're trying to model. That's all I'll say there. The acrylics, you got to be careful with, because they will warp wood. They're fine on your plastics, but if you're sealing everything before you paint it, it won't be an issue.
Or paint both sides.
Hmm?
Or paint both sides.
Yeah, that's the other thing to do. Yeah, and make sure that you put plenty of bracing on the inside, so it's less likely to warp.
Is the water based? Is the water in the acrylics the cause of the problem?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Commercial stains, you got to be careful. Read the label. Minwax makes a lot of stuff, but there's a one of their lines has got a poly sealer in it. It ends up it seals the wood, and you may not want it to do that. And it's also a gloss, so don't do that. Gloss on a kit, it's too much. A couple of stains if you're so inclined and you're cheap. I've done this just to see how it's going to work, especially this steel wool and vinegar. Makes a nice brown stain. And but you got to be careful, because it can tend to warp stuff, because it is water with the vinegar. The India ink and alcohols, if you're lazy and don't mind spending a couple of bucks, Tamiya makes a black stain and a brown stain that you could use that'll weather fairly nicely, but they're kind of an intense brown and black when they dry. So you might want to cut them a little bit with isopropyl alcohol, I guess. And we get to actually building something. Read the instructions. They're not going to throw away your man card because you read the instructions. Okay? But this is another important part. Check on the web, try to find reviews. If somebody says this thing is the dumbest kit I've ever picked up, you might want to read into that and find out what they're really doing. So just be heads up. Be a smart shopper. So you can, if you read the parts or the instruction sheets, they'll break parts out, and you can do this starting out with sub-assemblies. Most modern kits these days, that's what they'll do. You'll build parts up, and then finally, like step 8 is you'll start putting things together. If you're building wood kits, the more modern ones, they make the kits are like three or four pieces in every window, because you've got a jamb, you've got the window frames, you've got mullions, and you've probably got a clear section in there. So what I've done is I've got two jigs. One is made out of plastic for my wooden kits, and then I got another one made out of wood for my plastic kits if I've got to build something up that way. And I'll show you a picture of one of these coming up. Yeah, and you definitely want to do this. If you can find a piece of glass, like I got lucky, I got the glass from the top of a copying machine. It's a good sized piece of glass. It's safe, and it's flat. Glass is generally pretty flat, better than the steel plates and whatnot. Those things could actually have a little bit of a warp to them. But if you've got a piece of glass, even if all it is a mirror, if you've got an old mirror that you want to, sure.
I use those, I don't know what they're called, those green mats with the grids on them.
Yeah.
Little things. I've had pretty good luck of being able to pop any glue off of that. I mean, the glue will leak down, but generally you can just pop it off with a.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I build on that routinely,
Yeah.
but if I've got to do something, I want to make sure that it's going to end up square, like a car or you know, a station building. I'll probably start out doing something like that, building it on a piece of plate glass if I can. Those are the two rectangles that I built. That's for your wooden windows, and that's for my anything plastic that I got to put together, because I don't want to glue my plastic window to my plastic jig, and you know, that's poor form. So use the opposite material when you're doing this kind of stuff, and it doesn't need much. I mean, you're just talking about you know, some little piece of scrap wood or scrap plastic, and then get some thicker strip stock, wood and or plastic, glue them on there, make sure they're square. You know, you're using something like this or the bigger version like we got in the office, so that when you put these things together, when we built the N-scale structure or the layout that's up in the Courthouse Museum, there's a lot of those N-scale windows. I could do like one a day because at a work session, because you're working on such a small scale to begin with. At least for me, I'm usually an HO scale, but you know, somebody like Bill, he's used to working in S. Looking at an N-scale anything it's almost dangerous.
So Ken?
Sir.
So I'm looking at this, what I'm gonna call this L bracket.
Yeah.
So is the plastic model in the inside or the outside? And how do you keep it from falling?
The window that you're gonna put together is gonna sit right in here.
So is it flat?
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna work on it when it's flat.
I think he's talking about walls, how do you prevent them from falling?
Yeah,
off?
You're not gonna do this if you're putting the windows into a wall.
No, he's talking about walls, building.
No, I don't use this for walls.
Okay.
I would use that, like I said, that square, that metal square thing that I showed you earlier. They sell them at Micro Market, I know,
Okay.
and they're not that expensive. You know, it might be the cost of an inexpensive kit, but it'll give you the square corners for a structure. This is mostly for doing jigs for windows and doors, because
Well, you're actually building the window so that it's square.
yeah, so that when you go to pop it into the wall,
Yeah.
you're
It's
not,
not
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
gotcha.
That would look tacky. Yeah, these are just for doing your windows. This is pretty much the way I do a structure kit. I'm going to figure out what colors I'm going to paint it to start out with. And then you're going to find out if you're building a wooden kit that there's nibs that hold the parts into the sheets. And once you remove them from the sheet, you got to clean up the edges. Now they've got a lot of burn on here because they've cut them out with a laser. So you want to get rid of that if you can. You want to get rid of any bumps that you'll see on the edges because they just won't fit together properly. Yeah, this is something I hadn't really talked about, but a lot of these kits, they'll build the walls out of multiple pieces. You'll have a base, and then you'll have, maybe you've got clapboard siding on top, and then you got shiplap on the bottom or whatever. So you're going to be gluing these things up in layers, and I would have some kind of weights to plop onto the pieces as they're drying so that they don't warp, because otherwise they could turn into a potato chip.
Ken, is there any way to take the warp out of a piece if it's already warped?
Yeah, you can glue stuff together with a lot of clamping and weights to hold stuff in place. And like I've got some car sides that I'm putting together, and there's 3 pieces to build up because it's a steel car. So there's the body of the car, and then there's the bracings on the outside of this gondola. Unfortunately, I didn't grab that side when I ran out the door this morning, but it's got a definite warp to it. And
can you spray it a little bit?
If it's plastic, no. If it's wood, yeah, you might be able to do that.
Spray it and put a weight on top of it.
Yeah.
And overnight it.
Yeah, I got a cheat. I've got a piece of rail, real rail. It's about, I don't know, 120-pound rail, but I got a piece that's about that big. It's about 30 some odd pounds. It could be an anvil if I need it, but it's also just a weight to lay on top of the pieces parts if I need that. So
If you're plastic, you really need a heat gun.
yeah,
And you
that
gotta be
would.
careful with that, because it
Yeah.
heats quickly.
It's a lot of quick passes. Yeah, Ben and I had talked about it for years because he had a couple of the buildings that he put together, and the roofs were kind of curly. It's just a fact of life with plastic. Just to give you an idea, that's pretty much the whole kit because it's all overlays. There's the body, there's your roof, there's your windows, you got doors and windows in that piece, and then this is a ladder, or not a ladder, but a stairwell that goes up. That's a typical wood kit. Rolling stock, well, I could really make it crazy. Here's one. This is a Finaro and Camerlengo. Luckily,
It's plastic, okay.
that's a resin kit. And all I did was inserted the floor into the bottom of the car. That's gonna,
So the shell comes as one piece?
yeah, it's one piece. It's a huge upgrade. I've got another one of those that I bought 20 plus years ago.
So you didn't have to glue the bottom?
It's right now it's just press fit.
Oh, plastic, okay.
Yeah,
No, with resin, what do you use?
super glue.
Super glue, okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that'll work on that. I mean, some guys say to use some goo. Walthers makes a goo. It's a stinky cement, and usually around plastics it tends to warp the plastics. But it's okay on that. It's not. It doesn't affect the resin. But what they want you to do is just use tiny bits of goo on just to hold the parts in place, and then come back and put your super glue on there to hold it to really hold it together, because the goo will not. It's just not good enough for that. So this is a bunch of stuff that they make. You can find, like you're seeing here, that's a car kit. You're more likely to see wooden kits like this. They're just some plastic, or not plastic, but they're just laser cut wood. And that's laser art. That's the old, what Branchline used to be. This is a guy that's still around now. It's Bart Mills. They make a lot of kits.
That's nice.
You know,
The Hickory Control Tower was one of those kits.
that's true. We've got one control tower that was one of theirs, and another one that was American Model Builders, which is now owned by Berkshire Valley Models. They bought up all the, AMB went out of business last year or 2 years ago, and they the different parts just went out to a couple other manufacturers. So you can still get some of the AMB kits, but now you got to go to Berkshire Valley. You're going to have to bring your trucks and couplers. I got a box of Intermountain wheels. You know, if you're going to build kits, you gotta have some stock. So you'll need to get couplers, you'll need to get trucks, and you'll need to get wheels, because they don't provide them in most kits. You know, if you buy the ready-to-run stuff, yeah, it's ready to run, pretty much. You might still have to do a little bit of your own work on it. Okay, here's one wood kit that they make. I think Berkshire Valley is making this now, but it's a Santa Fe caboose. If you're into Santa Fe, they had a pretty good list of caboose for various railroads. You could get Santa Fe, Union Pacific, mostly Midwestern roads. They weren't too good. If you're a New England kind of guy, you're not going to see anything from AMB. This was fun. This is a Santa Fe baggage car from Bethlehem Car Works. Now, they went out of business, but they were bought out by White Rose Hobbies or some such. And this is a short car. You know, it's about a 40-foot baggage car, which is pretty short for most railroads. One neat thing that John Green did was his roofs, he's got the ends as separate parts that are already contoured. So I think I like the way he did the roof in this thing. The floor, on the other hand, you've got to build up. He didn't, his detailing on the floors are pretty skimpy. But you got to do, if you do your research, you'll see what you might need to add to that particular car. Here we get into the glues. I've got handouts for this, but I need to get somebody into the office. What you got here is these are different materials that we're going to glue, and then this is the stuff that we're going to glue it with. So I got 3 sheets that I got to give you. But there's some notes here. The big thing on the CA super glue, they tell you to put it in a refrigerator. I don't know if I like that idea, because there's a little bit of humidity in that fridge, and humidity is what sets super glue. That's part of that accelerator thing. So what I do is I've got a, what the hell jar is it? Anyhow, it's a big rectangular jar, and I've got a desiccant silica gel that goes in the bottom of that, and then I put the glue in there and screw the lid down, and that keeps the stuff dry. And I've got glue that I've probably been playing with now for about 2 years. So this is important. But don't put it in a refrigerator. Other thing, I'm not sure what they're calling this stuff now. There was a product that used to be called Pledge and Future, and I don't know what the heck else they've called them now. They've got several different names, but it's an acrylic that dries clear and glossy. So it's really good if you want to go put something down for decals, or if you're building something with clear plastic, just coat the parts with that. And all you have to do is dip it by the sprue into the Future and then take it out and let it dry. Don't try to paint it on. It levels itself. It'll work out pretty good, but I use it for where I need to put decals and for, like I said, for canopies or clear plastic parts. This is getting into the chemical engineering stuff. So I've got whoever makes the glue and what they call themselves, and then what's in there. And it's talking about, you don't want it, most of this stuff you don't ever want to get on your skin, because these are all plastic type cements and super glue, and it's not good for you. Unfortunately, well, some of these guys are really good. The N-Scale Architect, don't worry about the name, because they do all kinds of scales, but they make a lot of stock that you could use. If you want to be a scratch builder, he's got a lot of stuff available. Go out there and pick them up. You know, go see what that stuff looks like. LaBelle Models, that's old school wood kits. Passenger cars, mostly. Some freight cars. Though he has picked up some of Bethlehem Car Works stuff. I think he's got the trucks that Bethlehem used to sell.
It seems like a lot of the kits have gone to laser cut kits. Does anybody still make the old stick built type kits?
You mean like trying to go pick up an old Campbell kit or something?
Campbell or Lehigh Valley. Lehigh Valley makes a lot of stick kits.
They're hard to find. I mean, I think you can still do that, but most of it, I think, is people selling off old stock. I don't think there's anybody actually manufacturing the stuff. Have you heard anything about that?
I've been buying up those Campbell kits at the trade shows, but they're all the old stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
bought like 6 of them over in on Spencer at the last trade show over there. But that's the only place I find them.
Yeah, you're not going to get too many. And now they're starting to inch their way into 3D printing.
3D printing.
Yeah, I mean, it's some neat stuff, but right now you may have to do some additional finishing, i.e. take them out in the sunlight and let them sit there for an hour, because the resin may or may not have set up completely that they've used to print. Now they should be, but every once in a while you'll get one that's kind of a clunker, and if the finish on them feels tacky, put them out in the sunshine. And then when you think it's okay, then come back and then just spray a primer on it, because those things definitely need to be primed. The paints don't stick well to that resin. And right now this stuff is really brittle, so you got to be really careful. If you're going to drill stuff, you might want to use a drill press, because if you're sitting there with your pin vise and you're doing this kind of stuff, you're going to bust up all your drills, and you may end up with a hole where you just want a very fine hole. So just be heads up when you see them. But they do, you know, guys when I've been out to St. Louis, there's some really impressive, if you're a steel mill modeler or wannabe, they've got a lot of stuff for doing that. If you're you know, like a Midwestern Granger Road where you want to go pick up stuff and go to a grain elevator with all the storage around it, and they've got all those bins and piping and all of that stuff. They make that stuff. I mean, it's impressive to walk through the manufacturer's side of the room to see all the stuff that they've got that's 3D printed. And it, you know, if you want to, it could be a short run kind of a kit instead of worrying about, you know, the old Athearn plastic stuff. They would crank out 10,000 of them at a whack. Nowadays, you're lucky if they do 200. But, you know, it's the quality of what they're turning out. It's really good, but it's still got some issues. It reminds me of the when we first got resin car kits. The resins that they were using was really brittle. I mean, I had a Westerfield kit, and they were a bear to drill because they had a what the hell was it? It was a metal-filled polyester resin. And nowadays they use something that's kind of a polyurethane resin, and it's softer. It works just like styrene plastic. But some of those old car kits, they're brittle. I mean, I remember buying what the heck was it? It was a Boonton coach for the Lackawanna. It had the open vestibule ends on it. Well, that floor was just, you know, piece of resin flooring. It just shattered. I ended up putting in a piece of plastic to cover it because I couldn't use the floor because it was just, I kept breaking everything. So it was like working with peanut brittle. Not good. Anyhow, this last sheet, and you can come up here and grab these other ones too after. This gets into some more chemical engineering stuff. They actually make some, they don't make the stuff, you've got to do it yourself. You look at those 4 or 5 down the bottom that are compounded. They're, you know, you're mixing stuff, you know, goo and super glue and goo and white vinegar. And these are about the only glues that you could use that are going to glue your Delrin trucks or your Delrin handrails. You can't use any other glue. For some reason, a couple of guys that I know have figured out to be able to do these compounded glues, and they work. Because if you want to put detail parts on your RS3, the trucks are made out of Delrin. What are you going to glue that on with if you've got a speed recorder you want to stick on there? Super glue doesn't hold up that well. But this other stuff that they're making here at the bottom, it might be the only way to go. So just be heads up. Keep this thing somewhere where you can look at it, and if you have to do something, this has got some good tips in there. Okay, questions? I'll make up stories otherwise.
Yeah. I have a couple of comments. I was able to use regular woodworking tools for one project. I'm doing my new section on 2-inch foam, so I can't nail into it, I can't screw into it. So in order to provide a stable platform for the turnouts and the mechanism for the turnouts, I had to cut. I didn't want to use basswood or balsa wood for that up crust, so I used poplar, and I ran the poplar board, which is about that thick, through my table saw until I got the thickness I wanted. And I had a real long strip, but now I got to cut that down, and it's hardwood. So rather than use a little saw and cut off like 20 of these things, I used good quality double stick tape and tape that to a piece of sacrificial 2x4, and then use my miter saw. I just cut off little teeny pieces, and when I was done, pop them off, and they go in where the roadbed would be. I put a notch there and then put this piece of wood in there. But that's how you can use regular woodworking tools that you wouldn't think you would normally use for this kind of project. It works really well.
It's a good idea to back stuff up with
Yeah.
the other sacrificial boards.
Another thing I found in my hobby shop in Sarasota, Florida, I was telling my project I wanted to build a balsa wood facsimile in my grandfather's house and store. And he says, well, have you seen these corners? And I go, no. It's a long balsa wood stock, looks like a Z. And when you put your two panels together, it forms a perfect outside cornice and a perfect inside cornice. And allows you to glue 90 degrees. And it won't hold it. You have to put it on a form to get your 90 degrees. But you have a nice finished edge inside and out.
Oh, yeah. So that was like the old Campbell kits had that corner stock that they use in a lot of their structures. But they all look like you were out in Western California somewhere.
Now, one other thing, people who are looking for things, the store in Sarasota has a lot of N scale, a lot of HO scale, building materials, kits. I'm going to be down there from February 23rd through March 7th. Want to give me a list, I'll bring it back for you. So I'll be here a couple of times between now and then.
Yeah.
So just hunt me down and give me the list and I'll get you your stuff and bring it back for you. So.
For free.
Oh, no. That's not my treat. The car ride is my treat. That's all I got.
Anybody else?
Ken, on the Elmer's glue, you got the original and the clear. I know it says Walmart. Is the clear better than the original or not?
What color's the original?
That's kind of a yellowish color.
Okay, for a lot of our applications in model railroading, you want the stuff that'll dry clear. So it would be
Just the regular
It's
Elmer
called,
glue thing.
yeah, you can't buy regular. It's called school
Glue.
glue.
Yeah.
School glue.
That's what it's called.
yeah,
You
just
go to the
They have-
dollar store and it's $1.25.
Yeah. There's two dollars.
just don't use the glue sticks.
Yeah.
They dry out and the glue is not that good.
Well, this was in gallon jugs. So
Yeah, well, that's probably, yeah.
Yeah, one school glue for the.
And
balance,
just
especially
make
the
sure you
balance.
got a good seal when you store that, because you don't want that turning into,
So you want to use the clear glue, the clear of it?
if you can.
Yeah,
I would
usually
recommend-
I cut it 50/50 with water, and then I add a few drops of liquid
I
detergent.
just wondered what would be best, to use the original or the clear.
Clear. And
You want the
add
stuff that
a few
dries
drops of
clear.
Liquid detergent.
The yellow, I mean, I use it on structures because I'm not going to be on the inside. You know, you can get away with it. But if you're going to have something where you want to see the inside, you don't want that yellow sticking out. You know, it's a sore thumb, so to speak. Any more questions?
What's the mix on that with the
I do 50/50.
50/50?
With
Some people use 50/50 water and glue and put
a few drops of liquid.
detergent in it.
Yeah.
And then some people say use the wet water, use alcohol and
Well, that's
water.
first. You do that
Alcohol and water first?
Then come back with the glue mix.
A glue mix, okay.
What's the object of putting the soap in there?
It's a
Surface
surfactant.
tension.
It's a surfactant. It breaks down the,
It makes it flow.
It makes it flow.
Because you limit, it lowers the surface tension.
Yeah.
But alcohol or detergent in your water, you put
no,
some,
the alcohol water is one thing. That's a freeze.
Spray on
That's
first.
Right.
that's a pre-treatment. Then your 50/50 water glue with a little bit of liquid soap.
With-
As you're
okay.
going.
How much soap do you put in? Just a couple of drops?
Drops.
Yeah, you don't need much. It's like when you want to, if you've got plastic or resin that you're cleaning up, a couple of drops of Dawn liquid detergent and just, wash your pieces parts with that. And that cleans off any of the oils and whatnot that you might have And-
I've Alice has been down for 40 years and it's still there.
Yeah. Stuff works. Anybody else?
Styrene kits. How do you, if you kit batch styrene, you want to like cut, do you have any thoughts of the best way to cut styrene?
That's always a good question. If it's doable, you probably want to use a straight edge and a sharp knife to just multiple times. I mean, I tried using a not a chop saw, but a,
Hacksaw?
no, it was a power saw, but the problem is they spin so fast that they're cutting and melting. So by the time you're done with a cut, you've got all this melted glue back in there. And it's the same thing when you've got your little Dremel. That thing's turning, I think at the slowest is 10,000 RPM or something. It's very fast, and it just glues stuff together. You know, you really don't want to have them do that. I mean, I've got a Tamiya power drill. I bought it as a kid. It cost me like 25 bucks or something. It turns real slow. But when you're drilling with that, it's faster than you cranking away with a pin vise, but it's not so fast that it's going to melt the plastic around the hole. That's what I've found over the years. But yeah, that's about the only thing you can do with plastics. The styrenes are a bear to cut.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do it on a power machine, you're not going to. Yeah, mainlining it now. But anyhow, any other questions? Tom, you look puzzled.
Just overwhelmed.
It's a lot of stuff. I mean, I'll go do this a couple more times if you need it. I don't, you know, for the club.
Yeah, well, we will, with it being video, we'll be able to show it multiple times, so that's great. I do appreciate, Ken, what you've gone through here. I didn't think it would be this complicated, and but
Yeah.
there's a lot more than just putting some glue to some plastic and thinking that that's what you need to do. So
That's
I do
the way I
appreciate it.
thought
Thank
when
you.
I was 7. And I built my first P40 Flying Tiger model. It had a lot of glue on the outside. My older cousins razzed me no end for that.
I would think recommendation, if you're gonna build any type of kit, do it in stages and do it very slowly. Don't be in a
Exactly.
rush to do anything, because you'll regret it in the long run.
Yep.
Yeah, and just a recommendation, if you've never built a kit, you might want to start out with some kind of real basic, you know,
Yeah.
branch line storage shed or.
Yeah, Bar Mills has got some simple kits.
Very
You know,
simple,
you're
yeah.
talking about 7 or 8 pieces maybe for a whole shed that you could put in your freight house area or your yard or whatever. But they're simple. You know, they branch line, if you could still find them, they've got garages for their houses. The houses are semi-complex, but the garages are, I think, pretty straightforward. And that's a good place to start. Build a couple of those, and you need them no matter where you're modeling. You know, people put cars in garages.
All right, well, I think that's concludes your
That's
presentation.
it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
For more information about the Apple Valley Model Railroad Club, visit their website at avmrc.com.